It began with a single text message, short enough to miss but pointed enough to cut. Family meeting tonight, 8 p.m. Everyone must attend. Urgent. Dad. The screen glowed in my hand as if mocking me. Urgent. An interesting choice of word from people who hadn't found anything urgent about my wedding 14 months earlier. 14 months since I mailed carefully written invitations, 14 months since I called each of them personally, twice. 14 months since they decided my happiness wasn't worth the drive, the effort, or the embarrassment of attending something that didn't fit their image. Rachel, my sister, had sent a text drenched in the sugary arrogance she was famous for. Sorry, V, backyard weddings aren't really our style. Marcus had been more blunt, too far for something simple. Mom's email came last, soft, proper, polished, and cruel in a way only she could manage. A casual outdoor ceremony doesn't reflect our family standards. Hope you understand. Dad, as usual, didn't bother replying at all. And so I said my vows under warm sunset light, surrounded by 50 people who genuinely loved me. Friends, colleagues, neighbors, strangers who had become more like family than my own blood. No mother adjusting my veil, no sister holding my bouquet, no father walking me down the aisle. I told myself I'd moved on. I was wrong. Because that morning, the morning of the urgent message, a TV episode aired that turned everything upside down. The Lifestyle Network premiered a special featuring restored historical estates, and the very first property they showcased was mine. My 12-acre lakeside home, the one they once mocked as a rotting farmhouse, was suddenly the star of a national broadcast. They showed the carved woodwork, the marble corridors, the gardens where I said I do. They revealed how I bought the place at a distressed price and rebuilt it piece by piece. They played footage from my wedding, the same wedding none of them attended. Within hours, my phone overflowed with messages from relatives who had ignored me for years. Old classmates suddenly remembered I existed. Even distant cousins I barely recognized sent cheerful emojis. And then, of course, my family followed. That was when Dad sent the message. I typed a simple reply, I'll be there. But as I pulled into their driveway that evening, I already sensed it. They weren't calling me home. They were calling my money. What I found waiting inside their living room wasn't a family meeting. It was an ambush disguised as concern. And the moment I opened my briefcase, everything changed. Their driveway looked like a showroom for expensive cars. Rachel's spotless silver Mercedes, Marcus's meticulously polished BMW, my aunt's new luxury SUV. Amazing how a meeting became urgent only when there was something to gain. As soon as I stepped onto the stone pathway, the front door swung open. Mom appeared, makeup perfect, smile forced, voice trembling with practiced sweetness. Victoria, you made it. Everyone's waiting. I stepped inside without returning the smile. The living room felt staged, as if they had rehearsed their seating. Every family member sat in a semicircle, leaving one empty space directly across from them, a place meant for me. I remained standing. Aunt Linda was the first to speak, her tone overly cheerful. Oh, darling, your home looked stunning on television. You must be so proud. I looked right at her. Interesting. Last year, you told me I'd lost my mind buying a termite-infested barn. Her smile collapsed. Dad cleared his throat, his authority forced. Let's get started. Sit down, Victoria. I'm comfortable standing, I replied, placing my briefcase on the table. You said this was urgent. Go ahead. Marcus leaned forward, wearing an expression that was supposed to look brotherly, but only looked hungry. We saw the documentary about your property. The renovations were unbelievable. Thank you, I said flatly. Dad continued. That estate is valued at over $5 million now. That's a lot for someone your age. We're worried you've taken on more than you can handle. Mom added softly, "Sweetheart, surely you have a huge mortgage. It must be overwhelming." I folded my arms. "Why do you assume I'm drowning in debt?" Uncle George scoffed. "No one in their 20s owns a mansion outright, Victoria. There's no shame in admitting you're stretched thin. We can help guide you." Guide me? They never guided me anywhere except away from my dreams. Brad, my brother-in-law, jumped in eagerly. "My real estate buddy says properties like yours peak fast. If you want to sell, I can connect you right away." I raised a hand to silence them. "Before we talk about my house or my money, I have one question." Their voices all died at once. "Why," I asked slowly, "did none of you come to my wedding?" Mom stiffened. Rachel stared at the floor. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "That's not fair," Rachel finally muttered. "We didn't think it would be such a big event." "No, you didn't think I was worth the effort." Silence flooded the room. Then very deliberately, I opened my briefcase. The metallic click echoed like a warning. "Since you're suddenly so interested in my life," I said, pulling out a stack of documents, "let's talk about the things you never asked." The next papers I placed on the table didn't just shock them, they shattered every lie they believed about me. I laid the first document on the coffee table with deliberate calm. Thick paper, embossed seal, my name in bold. "This," I said, "is the ownership deed to my estate." Uncle George snatched it before anyone else could, his eyes scanning the page. Slowly, the color drained from his face. "It's fully paid?" he stammered. "No loan? No outstanding balance?" "Correct," I replied. Rachel blinked rapidly. "But you told us you were on a budget when you planned your wedding." "I said I wanted an intimate wedding, not a cheap one." I pulled out the second set of papers, a recent valuation. "My home is now worth $6.2 million. The TV feature boosted its value more than any realtor ever could." Dad's hands trembled slightly, as if holding back anger, shock, or maybe both. "How did you afford all this?" he demanded. I placed another document before him, the registration of my company. "North Shore Heritage Restorations," I said. "I restore historical properties, and I'm good at it." Marcus leaned over the table, scanning numbers he clearly didn't want to believe. "This says your company's worth $24 million? 26.4 as of last quarter," I corrected gently. The room fell into a stunned silence so deep, I could practically hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Mom whispered, "Why didn't you tell us you were doing all this?" "I did," I said plainly. "You weren't interested. You brushed off everything I said about my work, just like you brushed off my wedding." To drive the point home, I pulled out my phone, opening a picture from that day. Me in my gown, sunlight spilling through the trees behind me. Rachel gasped softly. "That's your wedding dress? You never showed us." "Why would I?" I asked. "You made it clear you had better things to do." I swiped again, showing photos of the 7-tier cake, the string quartet playing near the lake, the vintage car Daniel rented. Aunt Stephanie whispered, "It wasn't simple at all." "Oh, it was simple," I said, voice steady. "Simple doesn't mean plain. It means focused on what mattered, something you all failed to understand." Dad rubbed his forehead, frustrated. "All right, enough.
We're here to talk about your financial situation." "No," I corrected him softly. "You're here to talk about your access to it." Their expressions froze, guilty, exposed, desperate. Then I opened the last folder. Inside was a list of every property I owned: Riverside Hill, Orchard Lane, the Maple Court Residences, the Lakeshore Retreat, the Crestview Shops. 32 properties in total. Uncle George's mouth fell open. "That's over 50 million in assets." 52.3, I said. "My net worth is 31.
Mom swallowed hard. "Victoria, why didn't you trust us with this?" I gave her a cool, steady smile. You can't trust people who only look at you once you shine. The moment I revealed my net worth, their masks cracked, and the real reason for the urgent meeting spilled out. For a few long seconds, no one spoke. They stared at the papers I'd placed before them as if they were looking at a stranger instead of their own daughter, sister, or niece. Finally, Dad exhaled, shoulders dropping not with relief but defeat. "We didn't know," he said quietly. "You didn't want to know," I replied. A flicker of irritation crossed his face, quickly masked. "We're your family. We're supposed to be involved. You weren't involved when it mattered. Now suddenly you want details?" Mom wrung her hands. "We were worried that you might be struggling." "Right. Worried enough to ignore my wedding, but not worried enough to check on me for over a year." The truth sat heavy in the center of the room, too large to hide behind polite lies. Rachel inhaled sharply. "Look, we get it. We made mistakes. But can we please move forward?" "Forward?" I repeated. "You mean toward the part where you ask me for something?" Her face stiffened. The silence that followed told me everything. So I asked directly, "What do you want?" Dad opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "My business is facing difficulties. We may need some investment to keep things running." There it was, the truth stripped of politeness. "How much?" I asked, though I already knew the number wouldn't be small. Uncle George answered instead, too eager to stay quiet. "Roughly $500,000, a temporary boost. You'd get it all back with interest." Aunt Linda nodded quickly. "And we assumed since you have the means now, you might want to help keep the family stable." Family. The same family that left my wedding chairs empty? Brad leaned forward, clasping his hands like a businessman sealing a deal. "We all just want what's best for each other." I tilted my head. Funny, what's best for each other only seems to apply when my bank account is involved. Marcus finally spoke, frustration dripping from his voice. "You're being unfair." "Unfair," I echoed. "Let me remind you of something." I reached into my briefcase one last time and pulled out a photograph, the table I had set for my family at my wedding. 8 chairs, 8 untouched place settings, 8 small cards with their names written in my handwriting. I placed the photo between us like a quiet accusation. "That," I said softly, "was the most painful sight of my life." Mom covered her mouth, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Victoria, we didn't know you'd take it so personally." I met her gaze. How else should a bride take it? Their faces crumbled one by one. I straightened, picking up the photo, then my briefcase. "You want $500,000?" I said. "That's less than what I spent on my wedding, a wedding none of you bothered to attend." Hope flickered in their eyes, just for a moment. Then I gave them the answer they never expected. "I'm not giving you anything." What happened after I rejected them wasn't just emotional. It exposed exactly who belonged in my life and who didn't. The room erupted the moment my refusals settled into the air. Marcus shot up from his chair. You can't be serious. We're family. I kept my voice even. Family shows up. You didn't. Mom stepped toward me, eyes red. Victoria, please, we're trying to make things right. I shook my head. No, you're trying to make things convenient. Dad's tone hardened, the disappointment he once reserved for my childhood mistakes resurfacing. So you're punishing us, is that it? You're letting money change who you are. Money didn't change me, I replied. It just made my absence visible to you. He opened his mouth, but I continued before he could defend himself. 14 months. Not a single call, not a holiday message, not a birthday greeting. But the moment you saw my home on national television, suddenly I mattered. Mom broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Aunt Linda reached out to comfort her, but even she looked unsure now, as if she finally saw the cracks she had ignored for too long. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Daniel. How's it going? Need me to come? I typed quickly. No, finishing up. I looked back at the circle of people who'd once called themselves my family.
You know what Daniel and I did the night of our wedding? I said softly. They looked at me with a mixture of guilt and curiosity. We walked through the garden at midnight, and he held me while I cried because none of you showed up. Not one. Mom whispered, Victoria, we didn't think it was that important. That's exactly the problem. I picked up my briefcase. I hope your business survives. I truly do. That I won't be the emergency fund you reach for when you run out of other people. Dad reached out as if to stop me. Victoria, wait. No, I said gently. I waited for you at my wedding. I'm done waiting. I walked to the door. Behind me, I heard Rachel choke out, Can we ever fix this? I paused. Maybe, I said quietly, but not today, and not with a price tag attached. Then I stepped out. Outside, the air felt cleaner, lighter. I blocked their numbers on the drive home, each tap a small act of closure. When I reached my estate, Daniel was waiting on the steps, warm light behind him. He wrapped me in his arms. I'm proud of you, he whispered, for choosing yourself. Inside, the house smelled of flowers and home. Our dog ran circles around my legs. Wedding photos lined the walls. Real memories, real love. Later that night, a message buzzed from an unknown number. Victoria, it's Aunt Linda. Some of us want to make things right, not for money, for you, if you'll let us. I sighed softly, then replied. Sunday, 6 p.m. Come alone. She came, with flowers and genuine remorse. No demands, no expectations, just honesty. As for the others, I haven't looked back. I learned everything I needed from those 8 empty wedding chairs. The people who show up without gain, they're your real family. Everyone else is just connected by blood, and sometimes blood is thinner than love.